This topic right here is the reason I almost got let go from my first full-time professional gig at the age of 19. I quit college, moved to New Orleans, and started playing full-time. Loved it, but lo and behold, I didn't have any groove, and apparently at a dance club, that's not a good thing. You need to be making people dance. The good news is, I didn't lose it. I didn't lose it because of the things I'm about to tell you. I started to discover them by doing a deep dive on how to get my drum grooves to sound and feel great. But don't worry, I'm gonna show you the exact things I did so that you can fix it in your own playing. The first of these 5 things is we have to have consistent timing. Now that seems intuitive, but oftentimes we have good timing. So in other words, we're not speeding up or slowing down, but the timing of our notes in between the beats is not as consistent as it needs to be. So for instance, here's me playing in time with consistency across the beat. I can take and I can play in time, but have those internal elements move just slightly. Now, it feels like I'm speeding up and slowing down. If you put a metronome to that, I'm probably going just about the same tempo, but the in between the beats, it's like swerving in your own lane is what I would liken that to. The first thing we have to be able to do is go, okay, I need to be able to play consistently in time. And again, this is a layered approach. So we take the most obvious thing first, and that is we have to get our timing consistent. The way to do that is get yourself playing with some songs as well, work with a metronome regularly, but don't just focus on, am I playing with the metronome? You need to go zoom in further and go, are the inner beats, are the eighth notes, is everything gridded out how I want it to be? Because that's really where we have to start. As Elvin Jones says, he says, everything else, that's just fun, but the time, it's non-negotiable. The time has to be there. And especially for beginner players, all the way up to intermediate players, this is where I see the most mistakes with this is, yes, you're playing in time, but in between those beats, it's not in time. And here's a little pro tip for you. If you're having trouble navigating the space in between those beats, then what you need to do is set your metronome to smaller intervals. Set it to 8th notes or 16th notes. For me, timing is found with the black notes on the page, the notes were actually played. Groove and pocket is found in the treatment of the space in between those notes. The second one of the most common issues I see with players, in myself, I'm still working on it. I talk with drummers all the time that are on very large acts and they're still dealing with this. That is flamming in between your limbs. Flamming. What is a flam? A flam is not a unison. A unison is where we hit 2 notes together. A flam is where we're going to have a grace note followed by a primary note. So this makes this sound. What can happen, especially when we're playing grooves like this, our kick and snare can begin to get off just a little bit and they make this flamming sound. For instance, I played 4 backbeats there. The third one, there was a little bit of a flam on it. You're never gonna find a drummer that is absolutely perfect with this all the time. We're all just always working on it. And again, I notice those things. So what we wanna do is make recordings of what we're playing and see if we can hear that flamming. Let me play this and flam in between my kick and my snare drum. You hear how my snare is just slightly behind my kick drum? That's usually how it is the kick drum comes a little bit before the snare, but not always. Okay, now let me play that not flamming. So you can hear the difference there whenever I'm flamming versus not flamming. It's a small thing, but this goes with everything. Flamming in between your hi-hat and your snare drum. Instead of hitting unisons, we're hitting. Sometimes you can have flamming in between all 3. And what that does is it just makes a muddy, unclean beat. So we want to work on cleaning that up as much as we can. Remember, we're humans. Our timing, our flamming, it's never going to be perfect. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about us playing this instrument as imperfect people is we are able to bring that to the instrument and have what we would call an original feel, a human feel. These next two kind of go together. This third one is where you're hitting the drums and the cymbals. It really does matter whenever you're playing the groove. There's a difference to this. As opposed to maybe I'm gonna like hit like. Right? The snare hand is like kind of all over the place. You're like, Stephen, that's kind of an exaggerated, funny thing. I've had students that are playing like that. I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. Your hand's going in like this circular motion whenever you're doing it. They're kind of dragging it all the way across. No sound is a bad sound. It's just, do we want that sound at that moment? We want to play what we want to play, how we want to play it, when we want to play it. So if I am dragging my hand across the drum or playing in a circular motion, I want to know that I'm doing that. And if you know you're doing that and that's the sound you are desiring, that's fine. But if it's not the sound you're desiring, and be honest with yourself, most of the time it's not, then we need to be intentional about where we're playing. Where we hit the drum or cymbal matters. I can play this drum groove at the edge of the cymbal. The fourth one is working on our own internal mix. What I hate to see is whenever players are playing at this. Same volume all the time, right? Now I can go the other end where everything is timid and soft. What is our internal mix? Just like pretend that you were an engineer and you had every one of these drums and cymbals on a slider like you would on a mix board. And what you want to be able to do is bring that sound up or down as you desire for the effect that it will have on the groove. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's say I'm playing this groove right here and I want to kind of change some things. Let's take the groove let's play Funk Beat 101. Everything one volume, it's not good. I don't like it. Maybe it is good. Maybe that's what you're going for. Remember, what we want to play, how we want to play it, when we want to play it. So if that's what you're going for, fantastic. But I want to kind of change it up some. Okay, now let me start with my hi-hat, okay? Let's start with my hi-hat, and then I'm going to bring the inner beats on the snare drum and bring those down, okay? So I'm going to make those ghost notes. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to let's start by really digging into the hi-hat, okay? I call those Tom Petty hats because in a lot of his songs it's a very consistent sound and it drives the music in a certain way. Well, let's say I want to hit with the tip of my stick and I want to bring it down below the snare. Different sounds, different volumes, but I'm able to bring that just like when I got faders. Let's add a little sloshiness. Let's add an accent on the, I'm just turning the knobs here on my hi-hat play. And I can do the same with my snare drum. Let's say I want to accent that last note. So we had this. Maybe I want to buzz the last note. And the same, if I'm playing this groove and I say, oh, I want my kick drum to be the loudest. So let's just start the groove again and I'll make my kick drum the loudest. 3, 4. mixing our own internal mix. Before it ever gets to the sound guy, I want to have my drums mixed appropriately for how I feel they need to be played in the song. So that when they reach the sound guy, or sound woman, all they have to do is augment what I'm doing. And it's already nested how it needs to be into the music. This alone will take your grooves from like no to pro. It will take them just through the roof if you will just start paying attention to how loud each limb is and how your intentionality, how you're hitting the drum. And then we have one, consistency of feel, consistency of groove or pocket. So this has to do with the treatment of each note. Remember I said earlier that timing for me is the black notes on the page, but oftentimes we forget that there's just as much white space on the page. There's just as much rests, areas that we're not playing. So whenever we're playing those rests, we have to interpret them correctly, right? So what I want to do is have a consistent feel internally. So what does that mean? Is it a straight funk groove? Are we swinging the funk groove? So let me play straight. You heard in the middle there, I went to more of a swung feel. So what we have to do is, how are we treating the notes individually, and are they all staying in the pocket? Are they all staying in the feel of that song? Or does sometimes, what happens pretty often is if we've got like a swung funk type of a feel, one of the bass drums starts to kind of straighten out. Instead of goom, gobat, it sounds more like 2 eighth notes in a row. So what you want to make sure is that you are keeping that timing and the feel consistent, right? The first one we talked about was timing, and the last one is the treatment of each of that, the style of each note that we're playing. Those have to be consistent too, which is different than timing, right? We can have bad timing and stay in the groove or the style that we're playing, a swung style. You can play swing with very bad timing. Trust me, I've heard a lot of people do it. So they're two separate things, the timing and the feel. You do those 5 things, your grooves are going to go through the roof. And hey, look, this is exactly what I talk to my students about every week. We have live calls with the students. I've got hundreds of lessons in the online campus. You can check it out, stevensdrumshed.com. You can find the link below there for all the information. But we have calls every week at the camps that we do here every year. Registration opened for those about a month ago, so they will sell out. So be sure and snag one if you want. But that's what we talk about. We talk about these nuances of our playing because I want to be able to take you from here up to here. It's not enough that you're playing the notes. Are we playing them with intentionality? Are we playing them how we want to?